Recording in progress.
Where does it all come together? Which is to say, how is our experience and our understanding coupled with what we are doing? And there are so many answers that are quite intuitive, um, meaning a lot of this is just going to be coming up. It's going to be arising spontaneously, and a lot of that would have to do with how the body moves, mm, how you hold the room in a way that you're just going to know it. And a lot of you are discovering that is one of the primary things here. It's a kind of knowing that comes before the knowing, an a priori knowing, a precognition. And then I come to you with some knowing that comes after the experience. Um, I guess that is the point of interest in the contribution. What would happen if you had maybe a decade, maybe 5 years, maybe 2 decades of being in this energy? What would it have told you? What would it have brought together? How long does it take before the patterns start to come together? So for me, there are so many ways these patterns become visible, and I conduct dialogues, what some people call trainings, in order to hold up a mirror so that a lot of this could come out in the verbal. So music for me has always been special. It's always been a nonverbal mirror, which means there's something non-sequential in music. In a way, verbal process is usually taking place one at a time. In music, there are so many things happening all at the same time. So when I look at my studio work, the creation of like a workspace, I think my main interest, especially in the last 3 or 4 years, has been where is there continuity? Where is there structural buildup so that every time this happens, the totality, the infinite, isn't just erased again and again, every time a session happens, every time a journey takes place, there's like a story still where one thing is leading to another, you know? So how I've always seen the energy is that it's alive, it's growing, and we are that energy. In a way, growth doesn't really begin to explain it in totality because spirit is the absolute. Yet, because we are returning to the source, we are choosing nonetheless a way in which the energy is growing through us. And we can consider that the brain extends its capacity so that we learn to hold more. So obviously, I've been within the music of inner dance for a long time. It's something that I will not easily extract because sound wants to show up here, wants to make itself known. The essence of music wishes to speak to us in a way that we are beginning to listen to it as something alive, something not just for entertainment, something not just for ritual, but something that gives feedback, something that's sending an old continuous message. Um, so yeah, like I'm happy. I'm actually really happy. When I used to hold inner dance processes a long time ago, before I took a long break, I would just be there. I would be with my iPad or my phone with other people's music, and I would hold the space. And every time I go back to holding the space, it feels like I have pressed the restart button. However nice that sounds, that you can just keep going back to the beginning, the energy itself kept growing, kept really growing, like fast and big. And it deserved a kind of continuity, so that even as we keep erasing the old and making it new again, the old remains and starts to hold more of the space, not just the newness, but, you know. Um, so little by little, I aspired and I dreamed of an opportunity where I can finally slow down and catch up with what a lot of this means. Um, because we've been using it, like based on the global spread, like people have been using this. I've been using this, and intuitively I understand it, but I also did not. And so I'll be the first to admit I didn't understand entirely what the music meant. And so little by little, I simply decided to give space for it. It's a struggle because there are so many other things that demand attention. But this demanded attention. So I invite you today, in the interest that maybe these questions are inside you too. The questions aren't singular, they can't be reductive or isolated in the sense that the question is merely about music. The question is more about what are the interrelations where music plays a part in relationship with the brain and our psychological being, our psyche, the nature of our bodies that are coming back to the vibratory, the nature of culture, the nature of history, the nature of memory. All of these seem to come together. So a universal understanding of all these comes through, and um, we offer this piece, this main tool that we put forward. So I think it's important for me to share in the beginning. I didn't use music as much as I later would. Second, I used to really hold people's bodies. I used to facilitate where there was this clear interaction between me and others. How it evolved later on was I didn't feel as much need to directly come into contact, like physical contact with people. I felt like stepping back and speaking more to the energy of the room. And music was the gift that allowed me to sense the space from a dimensionality that was different. It was like a trance of a different sort. Um, so I just kept going into that until it brought me into the sciences and the philosophy. And I owe the understanding of this sound so much in what it keeps revealing to me, to us, about who we are. This energy will just keep expanding and growing, and you will come face to face with situations where there might be as many as 50 people or 100 people in the room. And then maybe you're alone, maybe there's two or three of you holding that huge space. What language would you speak? What modality would you hold that allows you to convey, even as you're able to listen to the information that's passing through? Um, so, yeah, many things. One of which is maybe a really basic thought. Every time you learn a new skill, you are going to change your brain. You have to alter parts of your body through your action, your movement, your dance. There has to be both an alteration and an expansion of consciousness. There's something mysterious about learning music. When you learn a musical instrument, or in this inner process, there's this emergence of rhythm. Like sometimes the feet, the legs, the hands, they synchronize with the energy that's there. And it can be very strong sometimes. And very often the voice comes through and it's singing exactly as it's listening, so that there's no separation when that music from within starts to meet with the music from outside, which, as we know, is the definition of resonance. Mm. So it would be interesting to go to school with this. How well do you know the drum? How well do you know the wind instruments? How well do you know the strings? And then how well do you know the room as a musical instrument? So I think it's going to be interesting for you to see music as a spiritual practice, as a sensory modality that can hold information in the special way that it does, in a way that shamanism, religion, all these ancient practices have always um, born teamwork with this thing that we carry now, that could be offered to schools and hospitals and companies, governments, you know, uh, all these interesting places that could learn more about the nonverbal modes of thought and speech and experience. Okay, so I wanted to introduce the studio to you, and I wanted to make this a challenge to more or less isolate what could be an inner dance specific studio. If you were to go into music production, don't get overwhelmed. I had to learn this myself. No one taught me. I'm self taught entirely. I use YouTube videos and I use my intuition. And so, by no means am I an expert. There are many musical producers, DJs out there who do these amazingly. But where I'm coming from is I'm using this entirely within an inner dance or inner anything framework. And so I vulnerably share where I feel at a certain point we're equal because I'm new at this. We can all discover these together. I'm currently working with a lot of doctors. So when I open up these tools, I have medicine and anatomy and body systems in mind. So I am not separating like Ableton, the synthesizers, the modulars, the virtual synth technologies, the controllers with what could possibly be a sonic therapy. You know what I mean? There cannot be any separation. I cannot just be making music right now because of the sheer demand for systems to come about. Because obviously this is working. This has been working. The way it's also been working keeps changing now, that there is now more specificity, whereas in the past, a lot of this was bringing about general space, meaning anyone who walks into a room could be coming from any walk of life. But now there are questions people ask, okay, do you actually have specific vibrations that could interrelate with a brain tumor or addiction or pregnant people or breast cancer? So there could be some interesting work which I feel necessarily needs to be collaborative, not just between people, but between work domains, thought domains, um, where we would show notes with each other. So in a way, these are my notes. So yeah, I have several cameras up today. This one is movable. I didn't really plan this. I tried to wake up early just to give you a tour. So that's you guys. And I have a whole bunch of these things scattered around like a pretty big, small space. Big because there's a lot, but small because it's like this little cave system here. A lot of these I acquired while I was traveling. Um, and I would research a lot on what this is and what this does and what that does, what these do. In the beginning, I think this is a really good start. This is called like an audio interface. The thing that I'm using is from Complete Audio, and it gives me 6 channels. So it kind of acts as a mixer. And what's important about it is it could convert an audio signal. It could be my voice, it could be an instrument, or it can be any one of these. It would allow my computer, my laptop, to read it. So if you want a translator, I think this is one of the first steps. Especially it will become useful for those who would like to stream all of these sounds into a global space. Yeah? Yeah, so this is actually one of the last things that I acquired because when I was first starting my exploration, I was working more with what's called the DAW-less system. DAW means like a program, like Ableton or Logic. I wanted to work more with these synthesizers that would make sounds entirely on their own without the need to interact with this laptop right here. And so if I might have met you in Finland, Spain, Portugal, Turkey, or Iceland last year, I was working mostly with the NTS1 and this Korg Minilog. It's the same company. I didn't use this so much, and I was using this Novation circuit tracks. It's a groove box, basically. I also had 3 small Korg synthesizers. I don't use these so much anymore, um, primarily because I just needed something small to carry in the past. But I do find them kind of useful in a way still now if I wanted more variety or diversity of sounds. All of these things do the same thing. They basically act as controllers for Ableton. So I have 4 pianos here, 1, 2, 3, 4, so that if I have different um, instruments up in the same program, I can separate if this could be, let's say, a trumpet, this could be an arpeggio, this could be like um, a f- another wind instrument or like a pad or a synthesizer, and then this one would be like a whole different thing altogether. Now this one I'm particularly in love with. They're both Moog modular synthesizers, and I'm particularly interested in them because Moog started a lot of this mess that you see before us, whereby the coordination of electrical signals can create music. So I have this in particular because it mirrors the heartbeat, and this one mirrors the brain. So these ones I don't really suggest would be necessary for people. I'm really just interested in how synthesizers work as a metaphor for the central nervous system. So when I look at terminologies like voltage controlled oscillators, low frequency oscillators, noise, voice, voltage controlled frequencies, it goes really hand in hand with my study of how neural cross frequency oscillations work. Okay, so that's the basics, and then let me try to extend. I hope it's not too dark. This is a mixer. So I actually have several mixers here. As I mentioned, this acts as a mixer, but because I have all of these things, all these wires scattered around, I need to have more ways to absorb more inputs. So for example, for this mic, I need a mixer for that. And then for the sound inputs that come separately for these, they need to go into more inputs and then more there. So if I wanted to plug in my iPad or my iPhone, it goes somewhere here or here, which becomes really useful if I wanted to convert something like my noise app that it comes into the system. It would need to pass through either this or it could go directly into the audio interface. For most people, you probably should not work with this many stuff. So one of these might suffice. So you can plug your iPhone or your Android or your iPad directly into this, and you can instantly cross over any sound that you have happening in your device straight here, because a lot of people have been asking, how do I record the things that I'm making? This is the way. If your phone doesn't let you do that, this is the way. All you would need is a recording device in your laptop, and you press the record button, and it instantly preserves your work. Could have been recorded live, could have been recorded in the comfort of your room. Yeah, so those are basics. You see, let me put this back. I have other cameras, so I don't need to hold this. So we can keep this dynamic and we can go into some dialogues later. Maybe I could just do some demos on some of the things that I've been using the last the last year, which for me has been really powerful. I intuitively went into it, and what is important is the feedback. Like when I was just using these without the DAW, meaning like maybe 3 or 4 machines at a time, I was hearing the same feedback almost everywhere we went, that there's something deep about this. There's something different about these that, okay, let me list the feedbacks. Number one would be, there's something about this that is not allowing me to go into my emotional escapisms. There's something about this that's rewiring my brain with greater complexity. There's something about this that's bringing me into a cosmicality that used to be a lot more personalizing or go into identifications. Um, I have several inclinations as to why those feedbacks were coming. One of them would be related maybe to having more control over the vibrations. That's kind of obvious. Rather than playing songs, I'm playing vibrations, not music, because sometimes a lot of the vibrations would be unrecognizable and would not be considered music. So when you have this capacity to go beyond the limits, what was in the human range would go outside what is known vibrationally, because most standard music is conservative. They don't go beyond certain boundaries. Otherwise, they would be not recognizable as what we hear in the radios and so on and so forth. So what I'll do is maybe I'll share my screen. I emptied out a new Ableton space. So maybe we can create a whole bunch of stuff from scratch. Um, so the Yamaha mixer is on mixer number 1. And later on, we can assign these to different elements. So when you want to add, let's say, another audio track, you just double click and then you press insert audio track. And then it's really useful to just rename the track. So with this one, let's rename it Yamaha mixer so we don't get confused. Let me switch my video to the other camera. Okay, so this big box right here is an Ableton controller. It's called an Ableton Push 2. If you have a Launchpad by Novation, you get these similar buttons. You just don't get these screens. But basically, I can control things here. Okay, I can control the volume of my Yamaha mixer. And if I assign other tracks or MIDIs here, I can control certain things. I can control volumes and a whole bunch of other things. You can also control the tempo here. So as you can see, it's showing up there. I can also control the master volume from here for emergencies and stuff. Which means there is a way in which you can access complexity whilst not having to work with your screens so much. Because what we're doing is so body-based. When you move your hands and work with knobs, it's actually more of a dance.
the more you get used to, okay, what do these do? What does that do? You don't have to think about it after a while because they become extensions of your brain, extensions of your they're affordant extensions of your, like who you are and what you're offering to others. So that's what that does. But what I really want to look at is this one right here. I know two other people who have this. It would be actually three, Fanny and Helen and Johanna from Finland. Let's see if this makes a sound. Okay, so it doesn't make a sound. This just got turned on, so there's nothing coming out. I need to change the settings so that there's this constant sound that comes through. Okay. I don't know what that. Let me just take this out first. Come here. Okay, so let me just demonstrate how this one works. This is actually my favorite of all time. Of all the synths that I've ever worked with, I would work with this. I would bring it to sessions. I would never give up on it. It's the cheapest. It's very small. It's a little bit scary because when you buy it, it's actually a whole bunch of many parts. So I had to assemble this myself. And this part here, some of these parts, they were connected to each other. So you actually need to break them apart. And a lot of people who purchase this, they get really scared because it feels like it's going to break into small pieces if you do the wrong thing. But once it's assembled, it's so surprising what this one could do. Okay, so as you can see, there's a whole bunch of holes. This one is for power. I don't know if you can see it, but it says sync out and sync in. What that means is when I use this, I can connect it to a lot of other systems. Like this one goes to that, and this one I think comes from these moogs here at the corner. And sync means synchronization, so that when I make any changes here, I can make this the master and this is the servant, so that all of these machines are connected to each other, so that any changes that I make tempo-wise here will alter the rhythm of all these things that are connected, including the instruments that are inside my laptop, my Ableton. And so that is one of the purposes of this. Sorry, I'm not sure if you can see it. The audio interface. The audio interface at the back, I can't really turn it properly, has a MIDI out and MIDI in system, so that the when you look at this thing here, it's the BPM. It says 140, which is mirrored down here. Whatever's going on in my laptop can get translated into these machines. So it's really just something that you need to get used to, just like they were wires in your brain. Yeah? So this is what the basic sound is. These are just basic waveforms. And waveforms correspond to different neural oscillations. As we covered in a previous Zoom call,
This is the sine wave, and when you put together many sine waves, what you have are the square wave, the triangle, and the sawtooth wave. Okay. So let me alter the sounds of this so that you can see what it can do. These are just different effects. Just set up the platform. It can go sonic on you, basically. And just with this alone, you can imagine, you can actually conduct the whole process, maybe just with this and a couple of other things. Sometimes I just stay with this and I work with the noise app. And I don't even need the sync in and out if I'm going to do that. Because the noise app doesn't work with rhythm so much. So I would just need like a speaker system that can handle both. So this comes to this owner Baguio, and you need to press the play button in the circuits because it's connected. And our Baguio is a series of notes across the scale. Okay, so that's the playing notes. So if I press arpeggio for a long time, it starts to make a pattern. And I can change the patterns. Okay, so that's really just a basic sample. I could sit with this for hours and I would still be discovering new things that this really small thing can do. So that's like an introduction to something very innerdance usable. I especially appreciate this when I am in need for a delta track to go underneath something going on that has like a heartbeat. So let me see. Let me see if this one works. Just to give you an example. I'm gonna move to my circuit tracks here. I'll press the play button. Okay, so this looks complex, but they're actually just
projects laid out here. Okay, so when I press projects, these are different stacks of projects. So when I press this one, this is really just one stack. So all this is saying is when I press a button, I press a project. That is a whole entire thing in its own. So when I press any of these buttons, it would go into 8 different parts of that one project. This is the synthesizer 1, 2, MIDI, drum, 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 drum. So it just plays on its own. Some of these I created on my own, some of these I downloaded from the internet. So all I need to do is to press a button if I wanted to change the vibration. Okay, like, let me go up here. This I really like. I'm so into 80s music. So these are like 80s type sounds. They're from the Back to the Future. I don't know if you remember those movies. Okay, so let me give an example of how I might use this with the NTS1. So maybe I have something fast happening in this direction. I would basically need the delta track to go underneath it. So I would go over to the NTS1. So the rhythm that's happening here is barely noticeable. I'm able to hide it, but it's still in fact sending gamma frequencies. You know, these are oscillations that go beyond upper beta. So I could sustain that however long I wanted, and I can just control the tempo using the Ableton structure that's holding it together. Okay, so I'm just demonstrating that I can't use this alone. I would need a separate device to grant me what would activate the heartbeat. This is pretty good for me to hold the brain system. This can very much activate the... Okay, so I want to give another example of a maybe a bigger synth system. So this is a Chord Minilog XD. Una has a simpler version of this one, smaller one, but just as powerful and interesting. Let me see. Okay, so we can't hear anything because the output here is going into the audio interface. And so I'm pretty sure that's input number 2. So I need to screen share. I realize, oh no, I've actually been sharing the
Ableton screen entirely. But I hope you guys were looking at the smaller screen. So I'll press 2, and then I need to rename this into chord, so we know what that is. I control the volume here, so it's in 0. Okay, I move this to 1 for now, just so we can hear it. Okay, so this is the mini log, and the only thing I'm going to demonstrate to you is this seems complex because there's so many knobs, but there's not actually a lot that I use. Now, one of my goals in setting up the system, my system, is I want to work with accidents. I want to work with things that I don't know. I want to work with mystery. So you can't read it here, but what this says is programmer value, and what they basically are presets. So when I turn this, maybe let me switch to this mic so you could see it more. Let me switch to videos, and you guys need to tell me if something wrong is happening. Okay, so when I press this, I have these different presets to come out. So let me press play. They're basically just pre-recorded sequences that either I did or things that belong to this or that I downloaded. So just like I demonstrated with the NTS1, I actually just use this a lot to create the noise or I can go directly to the noise. Okay, so I really feel that this is not so complex in the larger scale of things once things are set up. Many of these things, save for maybe the Moogs, the NTS1, many of these things really just work with the library concept. We've talked so much about selection and combination, these operations that happen in the mind that work with time and space. So coordination is the key. When you choose any particular structure, when you choose any particular modality or tool, a lot of them will come with libraries. So I take a lot of time to organize my libraries. I would go over what is there, and I would look for what is missing, and I would put that in. And then I would make sure that I have an inkling where the different pieces might be. So with that, things become more manageable. Similar with the circuit tracks that I showed you or demonstrated. It now comes with its own library. When I first got it, it didn't really. It came with basic sounds, so I can make basic drum patterns. I can make up synthesizer tracks on the spot. But when I realized that it was actually possible to just fill it up with pre-programmed musical ideas, that are particularly useful for inner dance, then there's so much I don't know, because the libraries of a lot of these put together probably comprises, I have anything between 5 to 10,000 choices to play at any given time. So I think that brings me to what makes Ableton interesting. Like, why is Ableton interesting for me? I tried to set these up in my Logic Pro system initially, but the the synchronization just wouldn't work, and I am really glad that I just left things alone, because we then realized, us here, that so much of the apps that we've been sharing, that we have been using the last year, in fact, has an Ableton link Wi-Fi structure to it. So it's here. I press the button, like link. Launchpad, synth 1, a lot of the chord synths that are now in people's tablets, the Animoog synth, they all have this link button, which means that if I was connected to my Wi-Fi here, if I press link, all of these gadgets, without needing the wires, could instantly synchronize with these, the tempo here. We could synchronize the rhythm exactly to the dot, based on this innovation that Ableton had given us so generously. Um, so I'm now here. Much of my thinking process in inner dance work is located here. So when you look at these different colors, these are pretty much my mandala elements. What I would consider to bring about delta effects are listed here. I mean, when you open the entire library of sounds that are located here, it's really just kind of massive. So I've listened to them one by one. It took me many months. So when I scroll here, I can see their colors. That's how few elements I considered to be applicable to what inner dance could hold, and a lot of that are mirrored here already. It's systematizing here. So delta would be more or less elements that bring about meditative effects. So let's say I wanted to put one of those up. I would just really need to drag and drop from here, and then I could control them. Wait, need to turn them on. Wait, oh, sorry. All ends. Wait, let me try another one. Maybe this isn't connected. Okay, so just this one. So those are for me delta elements. I can randomly choose any which one, so that when I'm constructing a circadian wave, I know where back to draw from. However big this still is, it's more or less limited enough so that I have 7 processes ongoing at the same time. So theta for me would be instruments that aren't so delta based. alpha for me would be very arpeggio type track. Okay, so my favorite would probably be the Mu SMR tracks that I've chosen. They're the weird stuff. They're the unexpected ones. These are more or less N1, N2 stages where release work is happening in the first moments of sleep. Does anyone have any questions at the moment? I saw the one on the NTS one. I'm glad you guys are interested in that. Does anyone have any questions for now, or thoughts or insights?
Hi, Pai. Yes, I have a
Yes,
few.
I have a few.
Um,
Um,
First of all,
well,
thank you for all the
effort
effort
that
that
technical
implies
effort that
to
implies
introducing
to
this on
introducing
distance
this on
and
distance and
connecting and doing.
connecting and
I
doing.
can imagine
I can
how
imagine how
demanding can be this. Thank
demanding
you
can be
so
this.
much.
Thank you so much.
Well, what I'm
What
starting
I'm
to
starting
noticing
to
in the
noticing in the
organization, in the way that you're
organization, in the way
approaching.
that you're approaching.
So
So
basically, the libraries
basically,
that
the
you are
libraries that
using,
you are
they are the
using, they
libraries
are
that
the
are
libraries that
mostly
are
by
mostly
default
by default
Ableton,
Ableton,
and from there
and from
you
there
have the
you
groups
have the
of the
groups
libraries
of
that
the
they are
libraries
serving you
that
to
they are
different
serving you to different
brain states.
brain
Yeah.
states. Yeah.
So the
So
different
the
instruments
different
that you
instruments
also
that you
are
also
holding,
are holding,
you have a
you
selection and
have a selection
organization
and
on how
organization on how
different elements,
different
rhythms,
elements, rhythms,
patterns
patterns
from all these
from
machines
all
they
these
are
machines. They
also in the
are
same way
also in the same
organized
way
with the
organized with the
different brain
different
waves.
brain waves.
And
And,
and so
and
what I
so
understand
what
is
I understand is
the
the
inspiration to
inspiration
use
to
Ableton in
use Ableton in
organizing
organizing
ourselves, in this
ourselves,
case myself,
with this
is
with this
basically
is
having
basically having
the
the
templates
templates
very much organized as much as possible, and also doing a selection. It's a question that I'm doing to myself and I'm asking to you. Also seeing what from my noise can be much related with different brain state and having this more or less structured is the sense that you transmit to me about the order, the brain states, the resources, and how being able to use them on real time. And also I love this that you want to play with mistakes, with mysterious and these details. I really like it. Thank you so much for sharing this. Yeah.
The answer to what you are holding is not simple for me to answer, primarily because we're not really just looking at simple brain states anymore. We're not just looking at simple, let's say, the the the, the 12 stages or the circadian rhythms, the N1, N2, N3, and REM. This is a very simple model that we can initially use to describe the general innerdance construct, especially when we're using simple tools like DJ Pro, songs in general. When you start moving into these frequencies, a lot of this won't be so obvious anymore. So Christina here commented when she listened to Caro's recent playlist, the one she posted, then it didn't seem modeled after these, you know. So going back to the inner intensive, we brought up a lot of mappings. Okay, for example, we spoke quite a bit about the dopaminergic pathway. We spoke quite a lot about the glutamatergic glutamatergic versus the GABAergic. I can't speak and spell at the same time. Glutamatergic. That's a pathway. And then we spoke a lot about the serotonin pathways. And yeah, so on and so forth. There were certain others that came up. When I look at the Ableton structure along with these instruments, I need a brain mapping that would simplify things enough for me to be able to design systems where there would be differentiation between, for example, okay, we have this topic coming up maybe next week. It's being brought up. Or let's say there's this other topic which could become like a playlisting workshop in another day. We have this other topic like with the doctors that are up and coming. So the question is, okay, cancer definitely branches out. There's the pancreas, the breast, the brain, the uterus. Okay, so that I think we will take our time with. This one we can start off with. This is obvious. So much of the innerdance mappings speaks about this particular concern. So when someone asks a question, do you have a playlist for addiction? Okay, I can't answer that. I just can't. I need more details. So when I was speaking to Lee, I'm like, what sort of addiction? There are different sorts. There's the addiction to the uppers, and then there's the addiction to the downers. So the playlist that you would give for people who are on methamphetamine, and the current requests for playlists for addiction are mostly coming from people who are attached to this. The playlist for this would be very, very different from this, you know? So when I look at this, and then when I look at that, like all these, you know, it's going to be impossible for me to interpret this with this without understanding what would be the bridge work, what would be the space in between that would allow music, which has the capacity to entrain waves, which are signified here, that would be adaptable to these different elements. Okay, so going back to the pathways of dopamine, glutamate, serotonin, and GABA, we could maybe go in deeper into that, right? So, because the brain is more complex supposedly than the universe, we're not expected to perfect this anytime soon. But what innerdance does give us that simplifies the brain is it localizes the whole mapping into a very small part of the brain where so much of innerdance systems are happening. And that is basically, let me make space, it's basically the hypothalamus. Okay, this has been mentioned previously in some of the Zooms, but I want to elaborate why is this talked about so much. Okay, the hypothalamus is located in the limbic system. And the hypothalamus is very much implicated alongside what some people would call the crown chakra, pituitary, the hypothalamic pituitary pathway. All right, so the crown chakra coordinates a lot with the hypothalamus. Now, the hypothalamus has many functions, which could be interesting for those interested in therapy of all dimensions. The hypothalamus is implicated with the autonomic nervous system, which is very inner dance oriented. It's the parts of your body that are automated. They have a life of their own. The heartbeat, digestion, your breath, brain waves. The hypothalamus is also very implicated with the circadian rhythms, okay, the 24-hour cycle, which we tap into and alter within inner dance process. Beyond that, the hypothalamus is also implicated with learning, with emotion, with memory, with motor functions, and so on and so forth. And so we actually work with this quite a bit when we open up people's systems. The hypothalamus isn't just working with the pituitary, it works a lot with the pineal gland. Okay? So when it is time to go to bed, the pineal gland then works with the suprachiasmatic nucleus, which is inside the hypothalamus, that signals that life is now shifting from here to here. So now you need to enter the dream state in order to get to a kind of balance. Okay, so let's forget the pineal for now. Let's work with the pituitary. If some of you were in the Josh Zoom call where we talked about the Josh playlist and what sleep inner dance is beginning to do, especially for young children who had these problems, we talked about the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, okay? The adrenaline gland, or the adrenal cortex, as some of you know, is very much related to the yellow chakra. There's also something called the hypothalamic pituitary thyroid axis. So a lot of you know the thyroid is the blue endocrine system. So issues related to communications would be implicated there. There is also the hypothalamic pituitary gonadal system. So that's pretty much your reproductive organs. So as many of you would know, this is relatable to the orange system. So you can basically begin to list down, okay, under the yellow, I would have epinephrine or norepinephrine or even dopamine, cortisol, and so on and so forth. You could list down a lot of the, action or energy-based systems that convert food into action. The thyroid has a whole bunch of, chemistry words that are kind of hard to pronounce, thyroxine and so on and so forth. So I'm not going to go into them. The gonadal system is the same. I'm just bringing this up with you because within the hypothalamic pituitary and pineal system, you already can create a possible mapping as to the roles. Let's say epinephrine, dopamine. I'm writing at the extreme side of the desk. So serotonin, oxytocin, cortisol, acetylcholine. There would be norepinephrine, And then there would be glutamate, and then there would be GABA. Okay, so we've been hearing these terms. We kind of understand some of them. A lot of them rise and fall according to the circadian rhythm, 24-hour structure. And if you were meant to construct something related to one of these, okay, and you made this specific, it's like addiction into stimulants. Already, you could generalize certain things. Okay, let's clean this up so that there's a separation. You already can tell what would be over or excessively activated within this particular situation. It would be that, it would be that, it would be that, and it would be that. So that were you to construct your circadian wave, you might like feed this a little bit. You might, give a little bit of a sort of high, but not too much, because they already have an over excessive amount of these ongoing. No, despite the fact that they're super attached to experiencing these again and again every day as soon as they wake up, because they are addicted to these, then you can already tell what lack there would be. Okay, like you would work on serotonin, oxytocin, acetylcholine, GABA mechanisms, and all of these have brain state activations. You can entrain these. You don't really, let's say, let's say you wanted to relax someone, you wanted to expend acetylcholine and serotonin, it wouldn't really be that. Or I don't have Carlos here, but a lot of those are actually coming from DJ Striker from Barcelona. Yeah, if I was working with stimulant energy, I would go here. Or I'd go here. So I'm not overwhelmed. I can begin to plan out the elements that would go into the playlist construction prior to either a live process or something that happens within the studio mode, which I'm not really looking forward to. I don't like creating without interaction. I really would rather be in a relationality with the energy itself. So I feel the online process is actually quite rich as a possibility for a creation field. It could really extend so that when someone writes with a request, it wouldn't be too hard for anyone who's holding a community to find other people who would be, in addiction stimulants or in pregnancy first stage or brain tumor stage 3. And it could be possible to build the information, to build the connection, and because a lot of you guys are holding space, and not just that, like Lee in South Africa, and a lot of you guys, you're doing trainings already, and because you're interested in these, which means that you're not just sharing, you're studying, because you would like to know what it is that we're doing so that they would know what they're doing, however basic the introduction, then there's a match already. There's like a coordination between philosophy, theory, and practice within Ableton. When I work with Ableton, it's not really just these programs that are Ableton itself. When I press in plugins, then my VSTs are here. So, for example, my vital synth is here. I want to demonstrate what that means. I have my vital synth here. So inside this complete synth on its own that you can play with or without Ableton, I have my library organized as well. So if I needed just like a lead or something percussive or something pad based, there's not actually a lot to choose from. And this is, for me, one of the most powerful virtual synth technologies out there. It's free. I have Serum as well as an alternative. So I can open that up, and I really like to use this. It's very clean sounding, so I'd make a choice. Let me turn it on. Okay, well, I didn't really know what that one was, so let's say I could change it to something more interstellar. So selection and combination still sort of fractalizes within the main system, so that when you take on, like these came from Bart, Caro's husband still, and then these are things that I've just been collecting slowly over the last year. A lot of them don't actually work, to be honest. Animoog is here, which a lot of you know to be actually rather awesome. So you don't need to let them go. You can still coordinate. That's not actually the one playing. I need to press that. Okay, so that's Animoog. So we can't really say that this is strictly an Ableton system per se, because what I'm showing you is with the physical synths, which I really do actually enjoy, and the program, and then the programs within the program. I don't want to scare you, so that then I'll just share with you. It took me about 3 years to set this up, so it took me a while. When I started, the small things that I was using was complete enough, so you don't really need to end up with like all of these per se. Even when I open just one section, it just opens up so many different things, you really need to take your time. You cannot end up with these thousands of options, which you later would systematize. You'd create taxonomies or categories based on your own understanding, so that when I show you these, I'm not going to explain to you exactly why I am like calling the high oscillating frequencies or noise as the gray, or this violet is the gamma band. Why is this gamma? Like for me, why is this beta? For me, why do I consider that alpha? Primarily because my what do you call that? My preconditioning, my ideas of what makes those alpha. It's a really long list, which is to say, you have to develop your own system of interpretation as to what alpha means for you, if it's not really just going to be about the tempo or the rate. It's really more about what are the effects that alpha is known for, which is kind of like daydreaming. What is beta known for, which is alertness. Gamma, which is like faster hyper frequencies. You need to make it malleable. You need to make it really super fluid, so that there could be changes that keep happening over a forever. So these are portable for me. We have 2 or 3 spaces in Maya. Right now there's only 2. We hold sessions here. But the thing is, when we need to do the sessions in the main healing space, I need to choose what to bring over there. So I need to transport at least 1 controller. And if I'm interested in bringing over the circuit tracks, there's already an existing mixer there and speakers. So I actually need to unconnect the wires, and I love to do that. I usually bring my Ableton Push, which helps me to plan out when I go to Europe the next time. I'm not going to be bringing all of these. I probably will bring my NTS-1. I'll probably bring the Polyphonic Nymph synthesizer, which is the MIDI out for the circuit tracks. So I'd bring maybe 3 or 4 things that are much lighter compared to how I was traveling the last time, because I wanted to bring a lot of these home to complement what we had here. I also like the idea that, like even built into the Ableton system alone, there's already so much that I can work with. So yeah, that's just another interesting point to bring up. Okay, so I hope I answered the question rather than bring up a whole bunch of other questions, which I do like. Kind of hope that too. So just let me know if those are interesting for you. Let's launch into a dialogue, because I'm sure a lot of you have ongoing thoughts around these. What I'm doing today is I'm showing you my brain. This really entailed like a lot of work. I spent every day like here when I can, when I'm not with the kids and I'm not with the construction work, and I enjoy it like so much. It gets me out of bed. So I'm happy to share these as a kind of introduction to an ongoing work that's inner dance intensive. You by no means do you need to mimic or copy what I'm doing. You can use any program that you want. I am modeling these. I have actually so many of these because I wanted to create a survey so that you may not need to overspend and to overwork. I hope to simplify some of the workings of these for you so that you can save on time and money and find your own tools eventually down the line, 3 months, 6 months, a year, 5 years down the line. Yeah, so it's gonna be a work in progress, I think. So I'm going to open this space. Let's stop the share screen thing and see if, yeah, Oscar, if you had more questions as well, just go ahead. Don't be shy. All right.
Hi. Yeah, thank you for going through all of that. I've definitely learned some new things tonight. And yeah, I think besides for, technical questions in Ableton, which I have probably like loads, which I don't know if I can really go into that right now, because I think I would need hours to go into that. Maybe I can ask like one or two things just now, but I think that one of the things that came up for me earlier, and it came up for me before, like in another Zoom call a while ago, when it comes to these types of playlists that you're inviting us to create, where it's less music, or if not no music, and just sound. And I think that, when you were going into tonight, all these like dopamine and epinephrine and, GABA, like I realized there's so much that I don't know. And there's a part of me that's actually there's actually some fear, which I'm almost embarrassed to actually bring up, but I feel this fear of like creating a playlist and actually not knowing what I'm doing, because like, can I damage someone? And so like a part of me is like, of course, no, because like with intention and with your integrity and intention, you're doing it from your heart as best as I can, and to create something that can support. But at the same time, I can feel that there's something in me that has a fear here, because when you were playing that music earlier on, I was feeling all sorts of like things going on, and I know that I can handle it, because maybe on some level I'm not so afraid, but yeah, like there's this part of me that's yeah, like I feel like I need to understand to a little bit more degree what I'm doing, which is I think what you're trying to do with us right now, before I would go into creating playlists that could, yeah, that feel, more like the Josh playlist, which I've listened to more than once, and I can't explain what it does, because it's just so phenomenal. And it's, yeah, so I can see that even though I'm still using music in my playlist, I've started to incorporate more frequencies and sounds, and I'm seeing that people are going deeper. So I think that like that transition is quite nice to kind of just do it slowly and just seeing for myself. But yeah, so I just wanted to bring up that fear because it's there. So I wanted to just mention it. And then I think, yeah, what you were speaking about the addiction, which obviously we've been talking about, and understanding, yeah, just the difference between depressants and stimulants. It's so like obvious, but I never really thought about it like that. And it just made so much more sense into what type of a playlist one would go into. So yeah, and I think that I've been like just starting to play with Ableton, and I guess the question I wanted to ask you, I don't expect you to demo this now, but one thing that I wanted to ask you was, in that view that you're showing, which I think is the session view, if I remember, the one that's down.
Yeah.
That one. When you create a 1 hour, 1.5 hour playlist, are you creating pieces that you're putting together, or are you doing it all like in one go, or are you stopping and starting? I'm curious, like how you do that. I feel a very long session to actually go into that, but I've been I can see that I'm echoing. Yeah, I was just wondering, like, because I've been playing a little bit in Ableton and I can't get my head around the timeline because I'm used to a timeline like that. And so just wondering how that translates, but that could be a whole nother day. But yeah.
It's not complicated. It's actually quite simple. Let's do it really quickly. So this is the session view. And when you press the tab, let's make this bigger. When you press the tab view, then you go into the arrangement view. So let's say, let's drag and drop a small bunch of things here. So as I said, this is the arrangement view. If you press the record button, okay, and you can press it from here and say, let's get that going. And then I can press the keyboard to, I'll just press this one. Do you see what happened?
Yeah.
So going back here, it translates instantly to the timeline. So let's say
time.
Yeah. This is space. This is time. So even if I'm not looking at that one, let's say this is going on and this is recording. I press stop here. This is the stop button. And then maybe this is still going on. That translates. So you see that's when I press the stop for that particular track, right? So if I had a whole slew of things that I drag and drop here, okay? So in Ableton, this is what you would press if you wanted to play this entire row all at the same time. Let's turn them on. You can see what happens. They instantly synchronize already. So I'm going to press this. So it's right here.
And if you recorded it, keep it.
You can change any bit of it anytime you want to. You can alter it. You can go back to it at your convenience.
Yeah, so I think what I'm understanding is that when you record, it keeps that snippet that you record in arrangement view, and you can move it around, potentially do what you want there, but it actually keeps it there. So you've actually got like different things. Okay, it's okay. Yeah. So it's not what I thought actually arrangement view was. So so it's just okay, cool. I'm gonna have to play a little bit. I have a sense. All right. Thank you.
Let me finish that one demo. Okay, so let's press record.
Share your screen.
Oh, yeah. Great. get there. You can see the moment I pressed stop for this track, it stopped playing. So any changes that I make in any of these will apply to this. Do you see what I mean? So you don't even need to be looking at this. You could be entirely on this, and you could be making the changes to, let's say, the plugin, to be working on that, or this one here, all these. Any of these changes will come out here. And once you load that as an entire MP3 or WAV file, it just comes out as one playlist.
And you can move those, like drag things?
Yeah.
That you can
And
layer.
Yeah, and they're quantized, not like in Logic Pro that doesn't automatically do it. So that I move this and I move this, and they're both synchronized. Do you know what I mean? They're both synchronized. They're rhythmically matching.
Wow. Okay. Thank you.
So even with the instruments that I have in the room, they instantly beat match as well. When I change a preset on the Minilog, it follows. Same with the circuit tracks, same with the NTS1, the Moogs, the Volcas, the circuit rhythm. Like everything is synchronized. It actually makes things quite easy. So I think just a bit on the fear. We're allowed experimentations because the basic premises that we hold are okay from a generalized point of view. So if we're doing basic workshops, I sincerely believe that even people without the trainings, without the frameworks, the insights are discoverable. People will find out what works and what does not work if they're really looking at it. So the arrival of paradox or dualities into a oneness, you don't need the terminologies, the autonomic nervous system and the sympathetic and the parasympathetic and even the enteric. You can find these out, because even before I held these terms, I was doing already the same formulations. So I think we are trustable. It's just that the world is becoming more and more complex, and disorders of the heart, the mind, the body are becoming profuse. So those who are interested in therapy in a much deeper sense of that word, my advice is, because there's so much we don't know, we can either sit with this emotionally, say this is scary and I don't know when I might actually start with the building of effective systems. We know that sound affects the circadian rhythms and the autonomic nervous system, which means we know this could be important, and that understanding something that is important is natural. So I don't want to maybe have people have to wait for, let's say, 2 years or 3 years before they feel they're ready to start. I feel like small steps, and I think that's what Stoudious Mundos is good for. We can fractalize these dialogues. Today is a survey. It's an introduction. then we can fractalize into looking at just one particular instrument or one particular brain state, one particular organ or endocrine gland or brain region, and then we can really squeeze what we can from a 2 or 3 hour conversation, and that we have to slow down. But if we do this now slowly, week by week, and a lot of us are talking every day, sending each other voice notes, 2 years later, at least we actually got somewhere from those small steps. So I really anticipated I want to call it anxiety. I really anticipated this. I know it's coming. I know that this work brings about like a lot of bliss states and a lot of non-thinking, states, and that we would somehow have to move into responsible practice, especially when we're not just the ones laying down on the floor, but our eyes are now open and we're like systematizing. So I'm glad. I really do feel that this, between all of us, collaboratively across many communities, whatever you call the work that you're doing, that maybe I myself am only really ready to come to this now by myself and with others. There was so much I didn't understand about this, but for me, it's been getting really clear, especially last year with the kind of dialogues that have been happening and the feedback systems that you've been receiving. It feels like now, maybe just now, this time of the world's history, this is maybe more and more possible for us. Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Who was iPhone guest?
Oh,
Una.
how is my sound? Is that fine? That was intense. Yeah, I wanted to just already before Lee was speaking, I wanted to share something, and then it was actually resonating quite well or quite much. So we held the session on Sunday, and it was just my second time conducting the playlist fully live, and I realized, because it went really well in the beginning, in the first session, I was working with 3 apps, and it didn't overwhelm me. I think it was a little bit of just beginner's luck also, and I just trusted that it was there. And then the second time, now on Sunday, I could really feel that in a way that I didn't enter the same trusting space, or where I would feel that this non-linearity could actually come through. I think I was in that 12, I was sort of studying a bit the 12 stages before the session, and I always try and remind myself they are non-linear. They don't happen always in this order, and they are not 1 and then 2. They're not sequential necessarily, but in a way, if I use it as a model, I think it really put me in some sort of less of a trusting space. And now I afterwards, I'm feeling like maybe it's something about also that songs, they hold so much story, and I was using a lot of songs, and afterwards I have felt really like I want to organize my library of songs, yes, but I want to now focus more on a library of sounds, because I could feel after like, yeah, maybe what needs to speak through me, it needs to be more neutral for for me not to get also so caught up in the story, and therefore like wondering, you know, if it's just, if I'm going too emotional, if it's too much this or that, it doesn't actually and then yeah, this is my sort of reflection on when Lee is talking, like, okay, is there a possibility to do this wrong? And I'm wrong, of course, but that space, because you mentioned mystery, but mistakes and accidents, and it's just so clear to me that those are the moments where things come together, and it's that unifying essence of things speaking immediately through. It's like, also I feel when dancing, it's just it's that moment where it's like when you trip, but you don't really trip, you just become that movement, and it just explodes, because it held so much, it was so much in one moment. So just wanted to say that actually I now, because I think I go into a comfort zone of music where songs, I'm like, okay, it's for people, and I have to in a way meet some of their expectations, but really is maybe not. maybe we, like, it's about, in a way, risk taking in every session. That is just actually a part of it, and it's never really comfortable to actually conduct this. That's my.
I wanted to share about the experience we had in Finland. So I feel there's multiple layers to it. First, the experience of using I call it gadgets, where we had actually no experience so much. We had a session with Johanna, Achilin, and I, and we just went into it directly, and we played like having each of us having an understanding of one gadget, and there's this really beautiful synchronicity that happened in the space, where we could really listen to the space, and the space was talking through us. And what was really interesting is that some people from the community in Finland was there from before, and they could share their experience on how it changed and how it was different for them. And we didn't say anything about what we did at the beginning. They could observe themselves the difference in the sounds, the fact that we didn't use any songs, that it was mostly through apps and the gadgets, and it was being held. and for us to hear afterwards the sharings that they could actually observe the moment where the body wanted to or was expecting or waiting for kind of like the old way, if I can say, or the more emotional way, like waiting for the song that would make them emotional, or waiting for the moment that something would happen, that they could go into a memory or go into this pattern. So it was very interesting, and people that have been into inner dance for 6 years or 7 years, and they could share this. So it was really um like surprising in the moment, because we were just starting to kind of shift quickly with this. And then afterwards, when we were talking together, and Una was in this session also, it was very interesting to have the feedback within the community as well, and to hold that with the people in Finland, and to see, okay, what are the changes that we can observe right away, and then what are the changes that are not yet seen, and what does that mean within the brain systems, and what does that mean where we can look into rewiring the neural pathways, and then the chemical reactions, and how much it is related to the hormonal changes that can happen. So it opened up a lot of doors to the studies, and to what Pi presented today, and within the last inner intensive, and it brings for me a lot of curiosity, to the possibilities that we can actually observe now and look into, and research. um, and then another thing that I would like to share is my own experience when we were at Johanna's cottage, and Pi playlisted live, and I was laying down, so kind of like my first experience. And I had a very deep experience that I was becoming sound, and there's something about sound that um, it, it holds vibration that goes everywhere, and when there's no pattern being held, which is seen in a song, that there's like a repetitive rhythm or tempo, or there's something more related to time, something that is temporal. So when we go into sound that is a bit more random, that there is still a tempo, but it's not in a pattern way. It's not in holding like a set of necessarily like melody, or um yeah, so like a beat necessarily. Then sound is um penetrating everything. It's like really holding, um it goes everywhere. It can really transports itself in particles, and would be matter, would be air, would it be anything around it. It doesn't travel in a linear way, it travels in a circular way. And it's super interesting to observe that in that moment I felt that it was really like going through my bones, my organs, like everything, which I didn't experience as deep when we were holding the playlist, or even DJing live with songs. So this is also an observation that I had that still holds a lot of curiosity for me, that I'm exploring, and really taking it slow, taking my time to study at the moment, because it holds much more than just sound, because it holds the brain systems and the nervous system and like the whole body and brain connection together. So it's quite interesting that there's this tendency towards it at the moment, and that we can really go into studying and understand and then create from also what is needed. So there's this creation of from us creating something and seeing the result, or seeing what the space is asking for, like what is happening at the moment with the doctors and the very specific playlist being created, like Josh. So yeah, it's really amazing what is held there, and then also what we've been sharing in smaller groups of what we question ourselves about, and how much it can influence where dance is also growing into and evolving into, and how much it kind of let go of this attachment or addiction cycle, and and it's like, what is the new addiction that we can create that would be a healthy addiction towards something that helps us grow and helps us um, understand deeper what we are, like it will like, and this is allowing us to really go into a paradigm shift when it happens. So yeah, so much actually question more than sharing. So this was from the summer and until now, even more questions.
I will continue here. Yes, Achilles. Something which is interesting is that we were actually exposed to the whole system, whole new system, for 2.5 hours, and then our session, and then we had to go there, and and then we all three of us were holding one gadget, and we are playing, and it worked, and it was really a lot of fun. And at the beginning, I had this thought of, oh, this is really so complicated, how it should work. But then when we had this exposure for 2.5 hours with Pi, and then like this today's call, and then when we started to play with this, there's something happening, there's something taking over, and also there's something where the patterns we hold is actually, while when you hold the music, while when you hold the vibrations, the sounds, there's a new definition, alignment happening with everything else in the space. And we were not even looking at each other. It was that we couldn't see the other person. And we couldn't also see what is happening fully in the space, like if the body is moving or not, or if somebody is, that was not based on a beyond that image, which was actually guiding us in that sense from within. But and further on, when we were holding some spaces in Germany after using and two iPads. Shani was using one iPad and I was using another one. We connected through a kind of a small mixer, what Pi was showing before. And then we used some of those apps. And parallelly, we were using still some some ways, heartbeats or whale song, and it was also helping us to be in the space, also to facilitate when it's needed, but also to not to carry all the gadget with us and to set up everything, but just to have the iPads. And it works also very well with it. It's a bit, at the beginning it looks like, oh, it's like switching between the apps and playing around, but it's with my noise DJ app and some of the things you like, it's really also fun. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I have at the beginning, for me it was a bit like similar to Lee shared. I was like, okay, how can we do this? How can we also actually slowly grow into with the old one? And this with the way when we are using still songs, and it had helped us to combine this together and to bring people into the experience of the new. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I would like to share something.
Go ahead.
Regarding to, well, to the overwhelm process that it can looks. I am resonating in a different way and also in similar ways with all that has been shared from other folks and mates. Well, what I noticed since I started in intensive and all this amount of deep and revelatory information, and also the baby steps that take to me to placing this in a structure and a container in music and transitions and layers. Well, what I'm feeling today and what is happening to me thanks to this calling is really not being worried for the amount of things that are taking place. Since we started the intensive and until today, I has been seeing how the devotion and the interest and the curiosity and the practice, they give fruits. So I have a lot of trust of what is happening and how the process through practice, responsibility, study, intuition can take place. Also, the standard that you are placing with the machines, with the programs, is very great to see the path, to see where the process is today, where you are today, and also with the generosity that is there also for letting us to understand and see how you were arriving there. In the middle of many things that you have to do, you were having time for spending in things and empowering the domain of these machines, and also yes, from the perspective and the place where you are also doing your own learnings and also establishing the foundations and expansions that are taking an innerdance energy school. So I just want to share my gratitude and inspiration that I'm getting from here. I'm already starting to having some classes parallelly in Ableton, so I was able to catch a bit more from what is happening today. And also with the device and the equipment that I have today, I agree with you that it's possible to already practicing and applying things and being returning to the callings to feed our collective dream state, and also the theoretical and all the insights that are here present. So I just want to share this as a way to let the fear and the contraction that can be reflected in my side for the room that we are sharing here in the class, and also noticing how things has been changing and through through the months and through the practice, how I was able to learn many things that never I was open to learn and integrated with the background that I already had. So thank you so much. I just want to share that input, and maybe if this can resonate with other people, that they can feel overwhelmed or doubting, is not really, don't get contracted. Is an amazing opportunity to see how the mastery of this process is taking you by, and where you are, and the efforts that you do for bridging us towards to that path. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I really appreciate this. I think what is clear to me in general is the basics of this energy process doesn't need so much instructions, words, and or just structure in general. So I feel like I'm on a crossroads as to where I myself can contribute more. And I wonder, how much are people interested in the more intricate possibilities where these are going, which is not necessarily just the intuitive parts. The intuitive parts are pretty much inventive, you know. Anyone can take their interests to any place under the sun, and that's really free, you know. Just in terms of the sciences and wisdom applied, why I am giving this introduction is partly from my wonderment whether this is something to put time into, because this is something I myself am going to do, maybe especially with the doctors, maybe with parents who are experiencing these issues with their children. I'm interested in the sleeping inner dance mechanisms, these 3-hour playlists that are being created, that have been uh, presenting these feedbacks. So I need some of these feedbacks coming from you guys as well, because I really am willing to journey into this with you all. I am by no means a master of these technologies. I'm quite new at these. What I am is a researcher. So these merely provide a gateway for understanding ourselves as vibration. I'm interested in notions like amplitude, frequency, oscillations, wavelengths, all of which are happening inside our bodies all the time. And so this is something I want to take into a project-based learning process. So one of the options is to offer extra work within Stoudious Mundos, because I know a lot of the technicalities around these won't be received universally. A lot of these will be way, way too much for what some people are either interested in or capable of. Some people will be interested, but it just won't be the right time yet. So I want to take that anxiety that was also inside me. That anxiety has something to do with time. When I am confronted with a whole load of stuff, polychronic, nonlinear, cascading, I know that I need to approach it slowly, yet there's something inside my inner dance energy brain that wants it fast, wants it big, and wants it easy. So I had to arrive at a kind of discipline which for me was a maturation process, a growing older process, coming from my intuition, then returning to a kind of logic, which could be onto logic or meta logic. I have my own feedback for myself, and the feedbacks are very strong. If I had a lot more time to conduct this work over the last months, I'm sure I would have really traced what was happening, especially in Europe, where people were spreading that playlist that almost got created by accident. So I'm here, interested in co-journeying equally, not as a leader, not as a teacher, not as someone higher, someone who's co-learning with you. Would there be possible collaborative channels where we could study the small pieces one at a time, because they are just interesting, without us going into the trigger mechanisms after we've surpassed the initial overwhelm, because that is what would do it. If the interest is there, and then we can put in the time. But if it doesn't seem like it's a wide enough level of interest, then there are other things to do that are also quite super urgent, that's related to bringing responsible practice to institutions. So I'm really in a crossroads this year. I don't know how much time I will be giving to certain things. The next inner intensive will probably be the last 3-month kind of course framework that we will be holding. We might be involved with other things that are like that, but I think I'm moving into something more, like lecture one at a time, that doesn't require just throughout the whole year on all these topics, towards like a much more general audience, like a wider survey. But I don't think that the audience space will be the spiritual opening only. This is something I would like to just let be, because there's already so much happening in it, and I don't believe that requires so much like structure. It could just be wisdom. It doesn't need to be so much wisdom on earth, wisdom applied, wisdom in practice, where human beings really spend every day a lot of resources and a lot of time, and a lot of those institutions need quite a lot of help. So yeah, these extra calls are interesting for me. So let's talk about it. We can extend the conversations in the group space. And I'm interested in talking beyond just the Stoudious Mundos family, because there are interesting groups as well that are conducting evolutionary work in their own ways. So
one question, Pai.
please.
When we get these feelings of overwhelm, maybe this arise many other insecurities for sure, that has nothing to do directly with the inner dance processes, and also this sensation and this chemistry of incapacity or no feeling good enough. Is possible to have a playlist, even knowing that the playlist they can boarding this can take this mechanism and this electrical and chemical mechanism, it's possible to do something or make something, especially for for many of us. I'm not saying that it's especially my case, but I really feel that if this is an electrical, emotional, and chemical state that we use to face not just in inner dance and many other things, there's can be something shortly done where, for example, we can really work in this reaction, in this pattern, and also how, if for future topics, how procrastination can be also included in this oscillation, in these chemical approaches, and how sound also can contributing, how the playlist can contributing to unlocking and breaking down these patterns that for sure, I'm sure that is not just coming and popping up here inside the studio space. So I just want to place this is something that can be interesting to see. Thank you.
Yeah, totally. Just a short word on it, and then we'll hear from Xavi. I'm tempted to maybe go into some deep experiential work with this, which would transmit the system for which was the reason why some people were able to enter into this with ease. Like the work that we were doing in Reykjavik, in Spain, and in Helsinki, we saw some people really rise up. It really feels like inner dance and the energy wave submerges you, and there has to be an emerging or coming out of the depths that is like a process unto itself. So I feel it could be possible for anyone to confront that if this is something they find interesting, that counteracts, it needs to be counterintuitive to what we get used to, where when we surrender, we spiral downwards. There is also this other work that requires a more masculine approach that complements the super feminine that we're tapping into. Xavi, I see you raised your hand. I was really hoping that you could join this conversation. I'm glad you're here.
Yeah, yeah. Wait, I think I have. Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's coming in.
Okay. Hi, nice to see you. Sorry, because I was absent for like 30 minutes during the session because I had to be away for some units. But I wanted to make a question. During the beginning of the session, you mentioned that you were having conversations with doctors, and you were trying to to see the benefits of the playlist in the work of, I think I heard like brain tumors. I guess like something like localized. No, I would like to know if it's possible to elaborate a little bit more. What is the materials and methods of this project? Because I think it's quite interesting. As far as I know that sound was used like with ultrasounds, no, for specific areas of the body. But I'm really curious because I'm also very interested in that, to see if there is a way of working in a multi waves, no, in specific parts of the body. I don't know your opinion about that.
Yeah, thank you. So, as a historical background, I think about 2 months ago, there were these Romanian doctors who are practitioners and residents in Germany, who, like, one of them did the inner intensive, and she was super curious, so she came and she spent some time here, and then when she went back to Germany, she found out that her mother was diagnosed with stage 4 she had a brain tumor, and it was in 3 areas. So because we were in a lot of discussions here regarding more possible localized applications of the energy, and because she believed in it, um, it was instant that as she was traveling to Hungary, where her mother was, that she asks me for a playlist. Is there a playlist for this? So I'm honest with people that before the last months, I have never created playlists that were exact to particular ailments. So this was only the second time. The first time was for a child that was experiencing many manifestations, and a lot of amazing things were happening to that. So over the last months, that one playlist for this small boy had been shared across Europe, and we were getting this similar feedbacks. The big change there, Chavi, is that I decided to redesign the inner dance activity, which normally takes place in a workshop. I've been working on this idea for many years now, that we should not simply depend on the workshop, because it doesn't have longevity. So I've been trying to approach more of the ecosystem or the environment in which, what if we were exposed to the vibrations on a more regular basis? So intuitively, with the small child, the small boy, I designed like a 2.5 hour playlist the boy was meant to listen to while sleeping, like right there at the border between wake and sleep. And there was something in the situation where I was giving all the symptoms that made me empathize and design it entirely according to where the boy was coming from, based on everything that I know, scientifically and spiritually. So when Anda expressed this problem with her mother, it was the same. So I'm going to be really honest that I don't have the exact mechanisms beyond what I know about the autonomic nervous system and the circadian rhythms and the pathways that I mentioned earlier, the hypothalamic pituitary, this and that axis. There's like three. I do believe that there's a lot of general elements that are really working right now. But what I'm seeing as a gap in the sciences is that neurologists, endocrinologists, and general practitioners aren't working together. So, because what we're working on are brain states. To make the long story short, the the old woman who had the cancer, there were 3 tumors. One was large, and then 2 were smaller. After a few weeks, the 2 small tumors had totally disappeared, and the large tumor had been reduced by 20-30%. And the mother, I gave her the instructions to just use the playlist 2 to 3 times a week. But she got so obsessed with it because she knew it was doing something. She was listening to it every day. So I think there's something we might have been missing out in this, where it might have been staring at us in the face. A lot of the sciences are around the sleep stage models. Why are we not able to like approach that aspect of life in a way? Practically, this is interesting because doctors don't always have a way to introduce vibration as the medicine. And so approaching sleep problems where anxiety and immunity, um, self-regeneration, metabolism, both catabolic and anabolic, um, I think we can bring the vital energy back to the body if we can tap into those very potent times. So I don't actually have that much. What I do have are a whole list of doctors in the Philippines and elsewhere in the world that are approaching and asking, can you now focus like this year on us? So we're actually rebuilding Maya. We're rebuilding part of Maya in a new land, and we're purchasing that land as part of an NGO process with the doctors. So it's pretty much a container where healers and doctors are going to be working together, not just in building a physical community, but working on a research base where a dialogue that hasn't been happening. You know, they're usually antagonists of each other. In this country, there seems to be like a partnership growing in inner dance. That's where we're at. Thank you. Wonderful. So anyone else? I think we can close soon. Caro, if you want to share something because you have so many experiences with this. And anyone else, we can close maybe in 15 minutes.
Hi everyone, I'm just like outside of the house. It's freezing. It's Caro. Yeah, I just came into the call like when Ahilan was speaking, and yeah, I was resonating with what he was telling. Like he was sharing, it was funny, and something was like taking over. You know, while you were doing the music. What I felt like was the last session, like I've been sharing in the group like last Sunday. It was like really what's happening. It's you're witnessing yourself like being like guided by the consciousness. Actually, for me, it's more like we are creatives, yeah, but I think it's just the consciousness that is playing with us. So it's really cool. And I was really having fun also into the space. When I came into the space, I shared with Pai like that yes, for once, like it was like and it's connected to what you were sharing, Oscar, also. I was like, I was really, really, really confident, you know. I didn't had like any doubt about like is it going to work, is it going to, you know, is it going what's going to think the participants and blah blah blah, you know, the mind that is like the ego also that wants to take over the space. So this just vanished, and it was so good. It was so interesting also to see the reaction of the participant, like what was visible and also invisible, but because it was like there was like a lot of information. So I shared like in the group this playlist that I did like live, mixing, like it was like a crossword between like using only sounds, and then I was like quite busy with the people at one point, so I decided to DJ on DJ Pro more. I still had like my noise and everything, but it was like yeah, it was cool. It was really cool because it was not stressful. If you go through this process of really, for me it was like dying. I had like the end of the year was really quite really dense, and I was like I was resisting to my own self, you know, and now I feel like something like really died in me, like all this insecurity that I am holding since I'm a kid and everything, but it's in a good way, you know. It's not in a egoic way. It's like I see us more like one, and I'm like going through this different experiences to know what people are going to talk about, like few seconds before they open the mouth and everything. So like the time going backward or something. So it's just like I'm feeling really happy to be in this space now, and I feel there is so much to explore. And also, I'm really interested to apply this. This researches on the music to like the people that are sick, that are all like there is so much to do, and I wish to start some project, to share project like more outside of the workshops. I do agree with that. I think we are limiting ourselves like just to one like kind of public, but I think there is so much to do in other fields. And transformation or transformative medicine, I don't remember exactly the name of the book you wrote with Dr. Rumi, but I'm really interested by this part. So and Oscar, don't worry, but go to the dark. I would say, go to the dark and die for die for not your physical body, but something needs to die in you to rise. Then, but until you go through that, you don't know that. So we are afraid. We have a lot of insecurities and everything, but it's all gonna be all right. So it's cool. After, it's really cool, but it's not finished. It's just the beginning. So thank you.
Amazing. I want to close this still within Ableton because I wanted to have fun with you. So even just a few minutes of sharing the possibilities. So let me see what I can still do. I just erase everything. Let me check. Yeah, I think this is working. So I got my flute out today, and what I was doing was I was just adding a whole. My screen's a mess. A whole bunch of audio effects. So there's this whole section of effects here. So if I was just to play my flute here now, and I'll just record a clip with it. Wait. Oh wait, sorry. I think there you go. So this needs to be here, auto, and here. Okay. So let me make a clip.
So let me add the effects here instead. Put in like a spectral resonator and maybe some reverb. Just a whole bunch of things. And open this up. And here's something I'm using quite a bit, just to go beyond the overwhelm. So I could just drop, and I would change my camera to this one. So what you're looking at is more of the session.
So when I press this button here, it says session view, right? So going back to the shared screen, this is what it looks like on Ableton. So these triangles right here are the play buttons. And if I mirror that here, it's these. All right. So if I press okay, so let me go back to the yeah, that was messy, but I just wanted to demonstrate the reason why Ableton comes up now is that you could go into clip construction. These are clips that you could either make, like what I just tried to do with the flute. I experimented with my voice today and I put on some effects that were alien and tribal, and it was actually pretty amazing. but somehow sometimes you can't demonstrate it live. You have control over the clips. So you could change the sound and vibration according to a grid format that might take you some interesting time to work with. But it would mirror your mind. Like I was really lucky, for example, when I passed through Barcelona, Caro's husband gave me it's right here, it's like a flash drive with about 50 gigabytes of like clips. And, it just sounds, it was drum beats. And I finally was able to open it only recently. And, I've just been mapping out what goes with what. So it sounds really complex, but it's actually really, really simple. The thing that I demonstrated with you, I didn't construct it. They're pre-made sets that I just had to download. And so I know where the Indian sounds are. I know where the Chinese or Middle Eastern or jazzy sets are. And I just need to work within the grid system. So that's what is coming, I think. The ability to collect sounds that you really, really resonate with, and then create a kind of matrix of your mind so that you can evolve that, it can grow so that when you feel, okay, this one isn't so good anymore, I can just replace some of these that I find messy into, with some really interesting things. In Maya, we're going to be spending more time on this with people who are coming who would be interested. We want to help them create their own system. Yeah, so more to come. Let's just keep spending time. If you guys are good with that, just give that feedback and we will keep setting schedules when we would all be good. So let's call it a night. We're 5 minutes past our hour. So thank you for being here. Okay. So if you could unmute and just add your voice. Good to see you all. Really nice.
Bye bye. Thank you so
Bye.
much.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Thank
the
you for
extra
the extra
call.
call.
Bye.
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 Bye.